Dearly redheaded, we are choosing consciousness today to get through this thing called grief. Interesting word, grief. It means love, which makes for a mighty good joke. But I'm here to tell you, there's nothing else. Just joy. And if the big picture tends to bring you down, go crazy once your life goes. Woo!
Good morning. I'm wired for sound this morning, and one of the reasons is I have my friend Jesse Saperstein. I've known Jesse 15 years approximately. We met, it was up in Rhinebeck, New York at the Autism Walk. Jesse had just published his first book. I bought the book, and we made a connection. And we've been friends ever since. Sometimes we go a couple of years without talking. Sometimes we talk more frequently. And I invited him today to chat with me about things related to not being neurotypical. Jesse, what would you like us to know about your books and anything else?
I think that I wanted to let you know that, sorry, I was distracted by a Facebook post about something funny I did when I was young, but I wanted people to know about my book that my books are called Atypical and Getting a Life with Asperger's. And I wrote the books when I was in the throes of Asperger's, especially with the memoir. Atypical is the old Jesse, the one who did outrageous things for attention, and Getting Life with Asperger's is more like the new Jesse who has the attitude, you're an adult first and somebody with a disability second. So I want to be weird and funny and eccentric, but I also want to exist in the adult world.
Gotcha. One thing that I want to make clear is you and I are both brutally honest. We've known one another a while. This podcast is not edited, so in the event we say something that you later want retracted, tell me, because I'm going to shoot from the hip. And one of those questions that I've been wanting to ask you, you just created a nice entree into it. When I was when I was diagnosed, I was 39, I'm 55, and I was diagnosed as Asperger's, but very quickly realized they were doing away with Asperger's, and they were creating just a spectrum where autism was concerned, and I didn't like it at first, and then I really embraced it. So I do say I'm autistic now. What is your feeling on that?
I just don't like change, and I believe that one of the reasons they changed the Asperger's diagnosis to autism spectrum disorder is because Hans Asperger was associated with the Nazis. He was part of that time period, and the people have been doing that a lot, getting rid of Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben's rice, anything that is semi-controversial. And I feel like next it's Halloween, because Halloween is definitely associated with some dark stuff. So I also think that it was funny to call it Asperger's. It sounds like Asperger's, ASS burgers. But it's I think autism spectrum disorder just makes things a little bit more confusing, where Asperger's is associated with, the Einstein syndrome, people who are eccentric but well-meaning.
Okay. I hadn't thought about Hans Asperger's. Is that your own conclusion, or is that something that you've discussed with others?
I've just read that he was associated with the Nazis, and he was not, as far as I know, involved in atrocious experiments like that Dr. Mengele, but at the same time, he just his association with that horrific period of time means that Asperger's is now controversial. I need to look it up, but I'm positive I read something about that.
I got it. I don't like autism spectrum disorder. I just like autistic. And this isn't about me, but I feel like I want to say that so you know. And we don't have to delve any more into that. I just never, I wondered for someone, and this is something that could be, I could be totally off the mark, but I think that when you label somebody as Asperger's, and the concept of label I don't want to get into either really, but you're making assumptions. And I find that as an autistic, I have, I may be functional in ways that is different from my counterparts who have less function, but the capacity limitations are across the board. And that's what I think about. That's why I know I'm on the spectrum, because of my capacity limitations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, when you've met one person with autism or Asperger's or autism spectrum disorder, you've met one person.
Right,
and,
right. Would you change it? Would you change it?
I'm, as I said, I don't really like changes that seem unnecessary, and it's not a term that defines somebody. It's the person that defines themselves, and hopefully adds positivity to the diagnosis and chips away the negative stereotype. And it's difficult to, let me put it this way. Would you see a concert starring Taylor Saperstein, or would you see a concert starring Taylor Swift? Does that make any sense?
Well, yeah, it does. But I'd probably, there are many instances, and I'm not trying to have a bigger conversation, where, I mean, people on the spectrum, ADHDers, neurological differences is no offense to Taylor Swift, she's wonderful, but I find autistics to be intuitive, more claircognizant, and just like anybody else, they can be fucked up. I don't mean that you can't be fucked up, but it's just an allegiance to honesty, empathy, things that if somebody on the spectrum has, looked at themselves and is more or less healthy, it's just an easier match for me.
Yes. So you're saying you agree that it was better when it was called Asperger's instead of autism spectrum disorder, right?
No, I like autistic, and I like the spectrum, because I look at it like the neurotypical spectrum. You have people that are very disabled, and you have people that are gifted. It's a spectrum of neurotypical. So I do the same. My brain does the same thing for autistics.
Well, it's I don't know how to describe it. I think that it's easier when the subcategories, because you're right, it is a spectrum disorder, but I don't want to call them labels, because nobody should be labeled, but when someone says autism, they think of hand flapping, self-injurious behavior, meltdowns in public, and yes, people with Asperger's do have those qualities, but at the same time, they can also be in a period of limbo in which they're straddling the neurotypical world and the autistic world too. So it's also the titles of my book. So it's I don't really care for dramatic changes for political correctness purposes. Like I just think the political correctness is getting out of control. Halloween is sometimes called the Fall Festival or Crazy Sock Day. Valentine's Day is called Empathy Day. We need to stop, in my opinion.
Yeah. 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 I mean, we can, and this, I don't think it's a disorder either. I think it's evolution. And I think it's been around through the generations. And I think what one generation thinks of it and is threatened by it, and the next generation sees the gifts associated with it. I don't agree. I agree with the genetic part, but I don't agree that it's a disorder, regardless of the level or magnitude of the issues. I
Exactly.
understand. Huh?
Yes, I want to let you know there's plenty of people who are neurotypical but disabled.
Right.
There's plenty of people with autism spectrum disorders or syndromes, whatever you want to call it, whatever makes people happy, where they're extremely functional and productive.
Yeah, and you make a good point. I don't look at a disabled neurotypical person and think they're disabled. So
Right.
I don't, my mind just, whatever you're dealing with, and autistics, I mean, that have higher capacity or however you want to look at it. I don't like the word function. The ADHD, the depression, the anxiety, those stuff. I think that's what you were kind of alluding to a couple minutes ago. That stuff can be off the charts and masked.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was wondering, have you ever met someone who has almost like a sociopathic level of inconsideration for other human beings, meaning that if they decide they don't want to meet someone at a restaurant because they have something better to do, they won't tell that person in advance. They'll just not show up and not answer the phone. Have you ever encountered someone like that in your lifetime?
Yeah, I kind of attract it. And here's what I want to say about that. That's, and we haven't talked about this. Well, we talked about benevolent narcissism the last time we spoke, and we can head there now, but I don't look at the typical population. I look at all of us as having a benevolent quotient and a malevolent quotient. And I would say that we, being who we are likely to hold the mirror and bring out that malevolence in people. But go ahead.
I just want to continue with the point I was trying to make. I'm not just introducing some random thing. I'm saying that I would never or could never do that to someone on purpose, as far as what I just said. Not showing up, not answering the phone, and letting that person linger in confusion. And supposedly people who do that, they don't have any kind of social disorder. They're neurotypical.
I got it.
And excuse my French. If someone did that to me, I'm thinking, why are you doing this? Just answer the fucking phone and put me out of my misery so I can get on with my day. What's going on? But
amen. You made your point. I get it, and I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And it's been written about by autistics. Autistics have written about neurotypical, like, why isn't this a problem, and why isn't this a problem, and why isn't that a problem? I get it, and I agree. I smell what you're stepping in. And I think, and again, this is my recollection of that. When you and I spoke the last time, and you, I think. And again, I have to say that as much as I know about personality disorders, I only have a master's. It's just through research, and I had to wanted to put my brain through a lot to figure out what I had grown up in, when I married, all that stuff. And those were, for the most part, neurotypical brains. So thank you for making that point. But you had said to me, you felt, and this was going back months ago, And then we had a second conversation that you had brought up benevolent narcissism, which is appearing to be generous or helpful, which I would argue is a general narcissist, but I understand what the term benevolent adds to that. And you had felt that you identified with that, and I challenged you on an intention basis, because I think your intentions are fantastic, but when you get that neurotypical response, as you described it, it sends you to the moon.
Right. I want to just explain what my version of benevolent narcissism means. You know how I'm obsessed with birthdays, right, Joanne?
Yep. Mine's tomorrow, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome. Just so you know, I wish people a birthday wish on Facebook, but my card writing days are done because I have a form of, I guess, mild OCD where I have to fill up the whole darn card, and it takes forever. So I can't keep doing that to myself. But anyway, so what I'm saying is, don't be offended if you don't get a long ass birthday card from me. But with my benevolent narcissism, if someone says, Jesse, your really long birthday message made me extremely uncomfortable. We don't know each other that way, and so forth. I would just say, I know it was long and over the top. That's the whole point. I have absolutely no empathy for people who are uncomfortable, because in my mind, they're the people who try to ruin it for everybody else. So I'm not able to relate to any discomfort when I'm trying to do something nice. Obviously, I won't contact that person on purpose. So I don't want them to file a restraining order afterwards, but I don't have any empathy for their discomfort.
Oh, honey. I don't look at that the same way, because I know you have empathy in spades, but I know what you mean, and I can relate to it in other ways where I'm very off-putting. Maybe not to you, I'm very controversial with what I like to talk about, and I think people are threatened and unnerved by, you're very confident. I know you got a lot that you deal with, but you got a great brain and you're very confident, and you go out into the world wanting to share it and utilize it, and people don't know what to do with you. Am I off the mark, or?
You're absolutely right, but they don't know what to do with me. But at the same time, I don't know what to do with myself. My mental health problems are greatly exacerbated with the endless question: what do people want from me? What's going to get to the opposite of this, which is the bullying, the snide comments, and the answer is nothing, because if we fix something, then about 50% of the population will be upset about that. And there's certain universal rights and wrongs. Obviously, things like animal cruelty and hurting children, they're always wrong. Trying to justify it is making sense out of nonsense. But for everything else that could be polarizing or legal, it's always going to be wrong. You understand what I mean, right?
Yep.
I'll give you an example. I went through a very shallow phase when I was young, and the women I went out with had to look like supermodels. I asked out the most beautiful ladies, and at some point I realized I'm suffering from jerkocytosis. I got changed, so I tried to go to the other extreme, whereas my standards were so low, I'd consider dating a woman who was technically not even human, like Greta from the end of Gremlins 2. And I thought, okay, this is the part where everyone praises me for lowering my standards, but they were not impressed. Not at all.
All right. You see the humor in what you just said.
Yes.
All right. But why wouldn't you? I married a rebound, Jesse. I didn't know. I'm trying to be careful. Let me think a second. But it was a very physical decision I made. I said what I needed and wanted because I was me at 22, but he heard everything I needed and wanted and knew what he had to say to me to get what he wanted. It had nothing to do with, my joke is at least my kids are good looking. And I did that for an extensive period of time, and it was hell. So I think it's very natural to be physically attracted, and then you're going to the other extreme is just kind of funny, but it's really not about looks, unless
that's right.
Unless it is, which it's about.
Ideally, it could be both. You cannot spend the rest of your life with someone you're not physically attracted to, but physical attraction and being repulsed are universal. They go hand in hand. I shouldn't say repulsed, but what I mean is that Kathleen Turner was once one of the sexiest women in the entire world, and then she transitioned to playing Chandler's father on Friends, his transgender father. And when I saw that episode, I was like, is that Kathleen Turner? And it was. So you never know what the next day will bring. And ultimately, it's personality that will outlast everything.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly matters, but it other things matter more. I'm very much a sapiosexual. I'm a brain-driven person, but I didn't get to experience that, and only very little later in life. But I wasn't. These men weren't. Well, they weren't that bright, but they also, my taste for the physical had totally changed. I wasn't with Attila the Hun, but it just when you said you were attracted to models, I had the pleasure of extraordinarily good-looking men when I was young, till the point I met my ex. And we were interested in each other for the wrong reasons, and you got to learn that. My attraction for you as a friend is because of your mind. You've got this phenomenal mind. And you said to me the last time we spoke, well, do you find me handsome? And I said, yeah. And you get more handsome with age.
That means a lot to me. And I am starting to realize that, without sounding narcissistic, that I am quite handsome. But when I was young, I always thought I was ugly because obviously I was bullied due to my flamboyant eccentricities, and they were not going to say, oh, you're weird, you're stupid, you're gay, you're this or that, but you're also strikingly handsome. The whole point of bullying is to make people feel the opposite of good, and they would add in that I was also ugly and had a big nose, and for most of my life I believed it until recently.
Yeah, my mother was on the autistic spectrum, and she would never tell me I was attractive, and my mother was stunning. It's a longer story, but I didn't know what I was packing. People would tell me, but it didn't resonate, and it didn't go to my head either. It's
the same with me.
Yeah, it's a longer story. Brian, where are we on time? Because I'm about to open a can of worms with Jesse.
You're at about 23 minutes.
All right. So we'll finish up this, and then I know where I want to go in the next interview, and I think you do too. You said, and it stems from the bullying, you've developed the concept of critic Christobia.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about it.
Oh, as I said, Christobia is the avoidance and fear of dealing with all forms of criticism. and I take things to heart just about all the time, and I don't know how I can stop doing that. But as a child, I never really learned the art of self-soothing, and in general, children are not able to give themselves a pep talk and say, "I'm doing the absolute best I can." So I just I don't realize that sometimes people offer criticism because they have a moment of jerkocytosis or they're hiding something within themselves. For example, I had a relative who was really hard on me because I once complained about having braces. She says, "You should be very grateful you had braces." She acted like a real shrew. I hate to use this other word, but I'm going to use it though. She acted like a total bitch that day, and that day of humiliation in front of my family had haunted me. And then years later, I found a picture of her not smiling in a wedding photo, and she looked like the farmer's wife from American Gothic. And she confided I was embarrassed I had braces. Damn, I wish I had seen the picture before that night. I would have had a field day, and I would have said things like, "Well, Miss Hypocrite, what about that picture? Look who was grateful for having braces in that picture."
God damn it, motherfucker.
Yes, pretty much. I would have said, if you're so grateful as an adult, why were you making that stupid face and with a tight-lipped non-grin? At least I didn't ruin a wedding picture, and believe me, I would not have stopped. I don't know when to stop, and I can be a very small man, a very small, petty, and spiteful man, which probably comes from poor self-esteem.
Wow. And let's end this interview with, by the way, Brian is enjoying this tremendously. I'm laughing because Brian's laughing, and I'm laughing because I know you, and I'm enjoying Brian enjoying you. All right, you've developed a persona. Do you want me to say the name, or do you want to say the name and explain him?
Persona? Are you talking about my alias of Sketchy Cigarette Butts or something else?
No, him. Sketchy Cigarette Butts.
Oh, yes, that's my alter ego. I need to do more to refine it, but Sketchy Cigarette Butt goes out in the community and collects litter debris. Much of it is cigarette butts. And he does that for positive attention. You know, there's nothing controversial about taking up damn cigarette butts. I want to say to people, try to find snide comments to say about that. And if they say, "You're just doing this for attention," I'll say, "Darn right, that's the whole point." Because people like that disgust me. People always say to kids on the autism spectrum, you're just doing that for attention when they do something foolish or negative or disruptive. Then they say, "I can't act that way anymore," and they start doing positive acts to benefit humanity. And some people will still say, "You're just doing that for attention." And a child is not able to tell themselves they're wrong, especially when it comes from adults, people they're supposed to trust. And that child will ultimately give up and stop trying and just do what they feel like, because their mind says nothing matters. No matter what, it's going to be wrong.
Yep. All right, Sketchy. We're going to end this one and start over. So we'll take a brief pause and get right to it, okay? Thank you for listening and supporting Natural Born Redhead. If you follow the bouncing balls, please like and subscribe. If you know someone interested in sparing others grief and inciting joy, message me on Facebook or reach out via my website, Natural Born Redhead. J-Ma.